Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wildcat Dash here on Dash Sports TV. My name is Jacob Mennuti. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host Ryan Wohl. A lot to talk about this week. So, how are we doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah, let's do it. The postseason tournaments are starting next week for most college basketball teams, but not, of course, for Arizona. I feel like I've said the word self-imposed postseason ban so many times, like that phrase. It doesn't even sound like a real phrase anymore. But anyways, since the Wildcats will not be playing in the postseason this year, their final game of the 2020-21 season was finished this past Monday. Not exactly the finish that the Wildcats probably would have hoped for. They lost that game to the Oregon Ducks, 80-69, but they did, however, sweep the Washington Schools right before that. So they won 3 of the last 4 games. So not exactly the best start with that very end loss, but they still kind of finished the season on a strong note. But I know why don't we kind of break down these last couple games? I mean, what did you see from Arizona against Washington and that game against Oregon this past week?
I saw a really unmotivated team in those last 2 games, unlike the following 3 games as they were going into that Washington game where they won by 1 point. They they were on a 2 game winning streak and they beat USC at USC, one of their probably their best victory of the season. And coming into that game, I think they just were a little too confident. I mean, against Washington, they beat Washington State, but Washington, they just didn't look motivated to get the job done. I mean, they were 13.5 point favorites and won the game by 1 point. And I thought they were going to lose the game for a little bit of that second half. I mean, they just haven't been shooting the ball well, and that's what I've been harping on the whole season. And in that game they shot the ball under 40% from the field and from 3 point land. They shot the ball 29% on 3 point jump shots and only hit 8 of them. I've been saying this so long, but you can't win if you're hitting 8 threes.
Yeah, I think the Arizona won that game against Washington, but I think we all expected that. However, I don't think anyone expected that game to be so close, right? Yeah, like you said, they only won that game by 1 point. And they were winning for a pretty good margin of that game for most of the second half. But a win is a win. Honestly, I thought the Wildcats showed a lot of heart in that game, at least late in the game. I know we were talking about earlier; they didn't look like it, but I think towards the end of the game, when that lead started to get a little bit closer and it shrunk down a little bit, I thought they played with a lot of heart. And I mean, Azuolas Tubelis, man, I mean, just another great performance from him in that game against Washington. I mean, he had 16 points, 15 rebounds, and of course, he had that clutch 3-pointer from the corner on that final play of the game that put Arizona ahead and ended up winning that game. But that final play was just so good because, I mean, they attacked the basket and they forced the defense to scramble and really help out on Aquino's drive to the paint. That help came from the strong side and it left Tubelis wide open in the corner. Just to kind of see that kind of play was really nice. When you attack the paint, it causes defense to scramble and, potentially create either an open shot or, free throws. In this case, it was the open shot. But it was just nice to see because I feel like a lot of the final plays that Arizona was making weren't really, plays like that. They were settling for a lot of jump shots, a lot of, contested, low percentage shots for the final play of the game. So it was nice to see, a more successful final play of the game. But yeah, I mean, just to Azuolas Tubelis, like I really do want to touch up on him a little bit here. Just a great game from him and just a great season from him. We mentioned a bunch of times about him being Arizona's most consistent player all season, and he really is that. And he was all that and more against Washington. And I think the best part about Tubelis in his season is that he's probably going to come back next year. I mean, which is huge for this team. Like I haven't seen any mock drafts that have him getting taken. So, which honestly, I don't think is fair to Tubelis. I think he's proven a few times, that he can, produce at the NBA level. So I think the fact that he's coming back and all signs are pointing towards him coming back is really huge for this team.
Yeah, along with him playing a great game against Washington, a guy off the bench who I want to touch on, who I've been hard on all season, was Christian Coloco. He was very aggressive on the offensive end. I mean, he only had like 1 rebound, 1 block, but he had 11 points and 5 for 6 from the field, which is one of his best of the season. And I think maybe his most points, if I'm not wrong, of the season. And he was just great. He looked like he wanted to score. He wanted to get going early, which was great to see. But the last guy I want to touch on was James Akinjo. I think it was that had to be in his best 3 games as a Wildcat. He had 27 points. He was 5 for 6 from 3. I mean, I keep saying he's a low percentage shooter, and that is literally as good as you get. And I mean, and as you mentioned, they were great late in the game. Another thing I have been like saying that Sean Miller is never good at calling good late plays in the game, but I mean, it just sucks that the opposite happened in that Oregon game.
Yeah, what exactly did you see in that Oregon game? Because I feel like, Oregon is, for me, I think Oregon is just such a bad matchup for Arizona. Like, they have so many big dudes on that team, and just Arizona just doesn't have those guys that can guard, big guards like Chris Duarte. Like, there were some where, Terrell Brown, I don't think is a bad defender, but, he's undersized. So, when he goes up against those big, guards / forwards, he's going to get, smacked around every time, right? Like, Duarte was just, there's just nobody on this roster that can guard Chris Duarte. And I think there's just a lot of guys on that team. And I didn't really expect a win in that game. But it's just a bad matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, along with Duarte, they had 3 players with 3 or more 3-pointers, and especially in the first few minutes of the second half, they started to break the game open. Then Arizona came back a little later, but I mean, they were 12 for 22 from deep, 54%. That's just hard to win when a team's doing that. And again, when the Wildcats hit 8 3s, 16 in 2 games, another game under 35% from 3, and they were just struggling. I mean, that I actually was surprised how I don't know how they kept it. Arizona did keep it close up until really half. I mean, but I just think they were overmatched. I mean, after the Oregon close loss a few weeks ago, and earlier in the season against Arizona, I've been saying they're the best team in the Pac-12, and I think they showed once again they can. And they're not just Pac-12 contenders; they're March Madness contenders to win the championship and win it all. I mean, they have it all: size, skill, shooting. I mean, but with Arizona, I mean, no production off the bench, 0. They like all these guys, just Dalen Terry and Terrell Brown just got back to what they normally do. Nothing. I mean, Dalen Terry, I was saying he was playing good, and then he had 2 straight games, only making 1 basket. I mean, that's just not good enough. You can't win games like that. I mean, Akinjo was good, 19 and 8. I mean, but no one else really. You can't have like 3 starters not get they had 2 starters not get 8 points, and then 3 starters neither above 10. So you can't win like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this season, I think Oregon was the better team. So I think seeing them lose both of those games was not surprising to me. But that's now the 7th straight game that Oregon has beaten Arizona. And that's a little bit. That's kind of. I don't like that. I don't like to hear that because we can go back to talking about Sean Miller and like what he needs to do. He needs to start winning these games against Oregon. Like, this is starting to become a lopsided rivalry between these 2 squads. So I don't really like to see that 7 straight losses to Oregon. This season obviously, but like the season before, I mean, Arizona was more than talented enough to compete with Oregon and win at least one of those games. But I don't know. I still think that this team is gonna be okay going into next season. And I guess that kind of is a good segue into our next topic. I think the biggest selling point with this squad is that the majority of this team is actually, looks to be coming back. I think as Sean Miller referred to it, he calls it the lion's share of this year's team. He says that the majority of them are probably going to be coming back this season. I know both Miller and Ira Lee himself confirmed after Monday's game that after that Oregon game that Ira Lee, along with Matt Wayne, will be graduating and not returning to this team. But I think that the NCAA eligibility rules allow for that to come back. But I think with just the log jam that this season and last season kind of created, and the number of scholarships, it was kind of inevitable to see some of these guys not come back. But I think the only other senior on this team is Terrell Brown, who I don't think he's made a decision yet on whether or not he's going to come back. So he's still up in the air. But as for everyone else, it sounds like this squad is going to be mostly intact heading into next season. And they actually, I'd have a chance to return all 5 of its starters, which I don't think is ever happened in Arizona's recent memory. I know Sean Miller is also bringing in 3 new recruits who we've mentioned on a show briefly before, but I think that they're going to complement this team really nicely. I mean, what do you think of this team, and how do you think this team will shape out next year?
Yeah, and I'll start off with Irely. I mean, I think that's best for everybody. I mean, as I've been saying for weeks, he's got a few minutes here and there, but they haven't helped anyone or anything really. So it's best that he moves on. And I think the same thing with Terrell Brown. I don't think Terrell, as I said on our podcast a few days ago, I think the main group of these players will be back, and I think Terrell Brown won't be back. I think I said multiple times I would rather see the young players, play. And I'm going to go as far as to say it. I don't even think Terrell Brown should have came to Arizona. I don't think Sean Miller should have brought him in because he took away minutes from young players like Dalen Terry and other guys that they want to get minutes and see if they really can play and develop here. I mean, what's the point of bringing in a fifth-year senior for a team that's not going to the playoffs and not competing for anything? And you really, supposedly Sean Miller wants to focus on the development of his young talent, which I don't think he does, is number one. So it's just contradicting itself. It doesn't really make sense to me.
I mean, I think Terrell Brown was really valuable this season. I think he brings on a lot of leadership and a lot of consistency to the squad, to this young squad, right? You said, why bring a fifth-year senior when all these freshmen are here? That's exactly why you bring in a fifth-year senior, is so that you can kind of groom these freshmen and kind of, mature them into their roles. But I actually kind of agree with you. I don't know where Terrell Brown kind of fits into next year's squad. Like I said, he's a great leader. I think he was very important this year. He was even more important once Jamal Baker was out for the season. But you look at kind of next year's squad, and there was a lot of guards this year, and there'll be even more next year. A lot of good guards like Akinjo, Kirk Kriesla. Jamal Baker's going to be back. KJ Simpson's going to be in that rotation, and hopefully we see Dalen Terry in that guard, rotation, which brings me kind of to my next point about, why I think that this, incoming recruiting class is going to be so nice. I think if Matherin, Akinjo, and Tabelis all kind of stay next season, I think they probably will. This team probably is going to be a preseason top 10, top 15 team next year. I mean, to Arizona fans, it may not have looked like it. It kind of felt like a frustrating and painful season, but this team, I mean, through all of the obstacles, through all the season injuries, through all of the canceled games and the COVID protocols and the postseason cancellations, through all of that, they still went 17-9. So this is definitely, it's definitely reasonable to say that this team will be the favorites to compete in the Pac-12 next year. I'm just super excited for this incoming recruiting class because I think it complements this current team so well. This isn't one of these classes that just comes in and just completely changes the scheme and kind of the way that this team is run. All 3 of these guys can really complement the dudes that are here now and really help out this team right now, right? I think the 3 guys, Shane Noel, Shane Nazoni, and KJ Simpson, all add certain skills that go along really nicely with this team. My favorite prospect, I think, of this class is Shane Noel, just because honestly, he's the brother of Washington basketball player Jalen Noel. He in my eyes is just the perfect small forward for this team. Just a big two-way player. He can get to the basket, and most importantly, he can play good defense with his big 6'5", 190 frame. So I mean, he just adds so much to this team, and I think having him and Shane Nazoni rotating through that 3 position, it's going to do wonders for this squad. I think we're going to see it right away too. And I mentioned hopefully we see Dalen Terry more in the guard rotation because I think having these 2 forwards now rotating through the forward position is going to be really great for Dalen Terry. I think, we've talked about it before. You've said, they're using Dalen Terry wrong. And I totally agree with you. I think, he was a point guard in high school, right? Running the offense, getting buckets. I would love to see him do that at Arizona. And he's, has a chance to do that now next season with more depth at that wing position because they really had no choice, right? With Dalen Terry and Benedict Matherin, that's really all they had. Size-wise, I can play the 3 positions. So now you're bringing 2 more guys who can do that and help out Dalen Terry and help out the rest of the squad. I'm actually really hopeful for this team.
Yeah, and I really like you stole my thought. I really like Shane Noel. That's my guy too. I think he's going to be a great fit to this team and add so many valuable different skill sets and set to this group. And another guy I just brought up, Terrell Brown. I said it a few weeks back, is James Akinjo. I think James Akinjo should, like when Sean Miller said he's going to talk to all the players, I think they should agree on a mutual, to part ways, and James Akinjo either finds like a way to play pro somewhere or to go play somewhere else in college. Because if Sean Miller's really focused on development and really focused on this youth of this team, it's to hand the keys over to Kirk Kriisa, and even hand the keys over to Kirk Kriisa and Dalen Terry, as they could start together and share that ball, because I mean, Kirk Kriisa showed he can handle the ball and he could play a little off ball. So I think that would be best for everybody. And I know James Akinjo scores a lot, this and that, but I know his last few games he shot at a high clip, but the majority of the season he's a low percentage shooter. He's not a great passer. He's not great at getting his teammates involved. He's not. I mean, you cannot say he's great at getting the players involved in that offense. He's basically playing street ball out there half the time, and I don't think he's the right guy for this group to let these guys grow. And another thing is, Sean Miller said after the Oregon loss is that they're going to bring back majority of the players, which they're not going to add a lot more extra guys to this recruiting class. They already have 3, as you just said, and there's not a lot of spots left. I mean, I would like to see them add a big. They just lost Ira Lee. Let's get a big in there that can maybe shoot, stretch the floor, and really add something, because it seems like they just have too many guards. And adding 3 more, that's too many. I mean, I know some of those guys, Sean Miller will try to play him at the wings, and we'll see how they could fit. But I mean, the reality is those 3 guys coming in, they basically played, guard, wing/guard, and there's just too many guys. There's not enough ball to go around. There's not enough minutes for all of these guys, and that's why I think that. I mean, I would predict that everyone would come back besides Terrell Brown, or maybe Akinjo. But that's why I suggest a guy like Akinjo, or maybe Mathurin, or maybe Tabellis would test the waters, just because, I mean, they see that there's 3 guys coming back. I mean, it's just, I don't know how he's going to fit it all and make it all work. I really don't.
I don't know. I agree that, they need to bring in a big, but I don't think getting rid of Akinjo is the move. I think he is really I think he is, Arizona's most important player. He's been it this season, and Sean Miller has even said it. He's done wonders for this team. He said that this team could have easily been, 500 if it wasn't for James Akinjo, and that's true. We've seen him take over the game and just single-handedly win the games for Arizona. And you said bring in, let the younger guys kind of develop. James Akinjo I think he's got 3 years left on his eligibility. He is a younger guy. He's gonna be here for the future. So I don't know if booting him after just having the season that he had is really the move. And Kirk Kriisa, I mean, he only played 5 or 6 games or something like that. I mean, I think he's gonna be ready, but to start the season, I don't really know about. I just really like James Akinjo. I think he needs to be talked about more as a potential draft pick. Honestly, he's just that dude. He gets buckets. You say he's not a good passer, but he's averaging 5 assists a game. So he's doing it. So I don't know if I really.
When you have the ball in your hand 80% of the game, you're gonna have you got 5 assists. Wow, 5 assists. That's not that much.
Well, he's a point guard. He's gonna have
5 assists. And another thing is, I want to bring up against him, which I've said in the past. I have no problem with James Akinjo staying, and I think he actually would be better as a shooting guard. He's a scorer. As you just said, he's a bucket. He's the guy that's out there to just score, and I think he would be better like that. You just have him on the perimeter. He could hit spot-up threes. He could drive. He's great at getting to the line. I mean, I think that's what he's best at. I think he could be an undersized shooting guard. I think that's where he fits best, and it's just – I mean, I just feel like the team isn't going to get to the next level with him. I mean – he scores 15 to 17, maybe 20 a game sometimes, but he's shooting 15 to 20 shots a game. I mean, give that to somebody else. I'm sure Mathurin, if you up Matherin's shooting by half of his shots and double that, I think he could score that a game next year.
I just look at it. I mean, what is the goal for Arizona? It's to win the Pac-12 and do well in the Pac-12 tournament, or in the NCAA tournament. You're not going to do that without James Akinjo. This team is not going to do that without James Akinjo. I just really feel like he is – when this team wins and this team is at its peak, and we've seen this team at its best, it's when James Akinjo has had good games. He's the front and center of this offense. And I know I agree with you. I think he could be a good two guard just scoring the bucket, but I just don't think, intentionally moving him is the move. I think, if they want to, do what's best for his career and test the NBA waters, I don't know, but I feel like forcing James Akinjo out of this team is, I wouldn't do it if I was the head coach. I just personally wouldn't do it. I think I just see too much value in James Akinjo. Like I said, I'll say it again. Like when this team has done well and we've seen this team at its peak, James Akinjo's had a good game and he's led the way. So I'm not really sure.
I believe that's because, like I said, the team's going to play better when he's playing well because he takes like 75% of the shots, it seems like, when he's out there. I mean, that's credit to him. The one thing I'll give him credit is, where they run the shot clock down real low to the end, and he's the one who takes a shot. I give him credit for that because no one else wants to shoot the ball on this team. That's another thing with this team is he takes a lot of shots, but I mean, he is the guy that will shoot the ball because, when you got Dalen Terry out there and you got Tabellis on the three, won't shoot it sometimes. I mean, it's really tough, and that I will give him credit for.
Yeah, we're unfortunately running out of time on that segment, so we got to move on now and talk about the football team. Actually, as the saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. So the men's basketball season is just coming to a close. But I didn't even realize until up a couple days ago, but we're like right at the start of Arizona football season. I think the spring practices start, I think, at the end of March. So it's right here. We're approaching the season fast. The Pac-12 also just dropped its 2021 football schedule for each team, and the Arizona Wildcats will begin the year on September 4th on the road against BYU. So just an instant test for this new coaching staff. That won't be an easy game by any means. But some of the other highlights for this Wildcats schedule includes opening conference play on the road against Oregon, another tough game. They'll also have 2 Friday games this year, one at home against Washington and another one on the road against Washington State. So what do you think of Arizona's schedule, Ryan? What kind of jumps out to you when you first take a look at it?
I think it's really hard. I mean, in the first 4 weeks, they have 2 non-conference games, one on the, technically on the, road. It's in Vegas against BYU, but then they play San Diego State, then NAU is an easier game, and then they go on the road to Oregon. And then another thing that sticks out to me is they play, to me, their 3 toughest games all on the road, at Oregon, at USC, and at ASU. They're all on the road. They're like this schedule, and they play at Oregon, UCLA, at Colorado, Washington, at USC. That's 4 straight in the middle of the season. That is just crazy. And I said to you earlier is that something that jumped out to me was it's weird for Jed Fish to schedule that BYU non-conference game as the first game. For a team that we don't even know who's going to be the quarterback. They're bringing in 3 new quarterbacks. After Grant Cannell left, and we don't know yet. I guess in spring practice when they start in a few weeks, we'll find out soon. But it's I don't really agree with that decision to schedule that tough of a game.
Yeah, Larry Scott is going out with a bang on this one. It feels kind of cliche to kind of complain and say that your team got screwed over and got a tough schedule, but Arizona's slate of games this season is not easy at all. Like you just mentioned, that first game on the road, BYU, like right off the bat, that's a tough game. That game's going to be in Las Vegas, so it might be fun, but it's still a road game. Their first conference game is on the road against Oregon. Like that's going to be so rough. The Pac-12 also gave Arizona their bye week super early in the season. They have it in week 5 or something. So that means that they're going to have 8 straight games, without a break. That's 2 months with no bye. So you got the lopsided kind of, with the bye week being earlier in the week, that's just brutal. And like you said, the last part of that schedule is also really tough. They're going to be ending, that 8-game stretch with, a game against Utah. Then they got to go, on a short week to Pullman, right, to play in that Washington State game because that game's on Friday. So it'll be a short week for them. And the weather in Pullman in November is also going to be probably very bad. So, it's going to be, a short week going against, crappy weather. That's just a tough slate of games. And then just to cap it all off, you got to play ASU in the Territorial Cup on the road. So, they also got, USC on the road. It's a tough slate of games. you hate to be that guy to like be like, oh man, you got screwed over on that schedule, poor us, right? But Arizona's gonna Jed Fish and this new staff is really gonna have their hands full, and they're really gonna have their work cut out for them this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough schedule, but the good news is, I mean, they are playing 12 games instead of, I believe, 6 last year. So, I mean, all they got to do is win one game to be better than last season. I do think this year is going to. I mean, I know Jed Fish is getting everyone hyped up, on Twitter, social media, and with all the new coaches and everyone, some of the new players. But I mean, it's still going to be a rough year. I don't expect big things this year. I mean, if I just had a guess off the bat, I mean, I would guess about 2 to 3 wins actually. I mean,
Yeah.
for a new team, a new coach, new everything. I mean, that's really the reality.
No, yeah, I think we're all kind of on cloud nine a little bit with this new coaching staff, right? But it's going to be a project, right? Like this is going to be, there's a lot of new faces on this team, a lot of, completely new schemes, on both sides of the ball, a new head coach, just a new mentality and everything. It's easy to kind of get excited about a team, but we got to remember that this is going to be a work in progress. This Arizona team is not going to be good for another year or two, I think. But like you said, the bar is super low this year. All you got to do is win one game, and you've already done better than last season. So I think the bar is low right now, which is good. And I think, although this schedule kind of sucks, I think this new coaching staff has proven to us so far that they're up for the challenge, right? They're active on social media. They're super positive. I think if there's any team or any, coaching staff that can handle this tough schedule, it's this coaching staff. So I don't know. I really like this coaching staff. It's just so much different. And just so much. It's such. I feel like I've said this so many times, but it's just such a breath of fresh air to see this new coaching staff coming in, and it's going to be a tough slate of games, but I don't know. I think I'm confident. Like you said, I think 2 or 3 wins is probably. I agree with that. I think 2 or 3 wins is probably what's going to happen, but I don't know. I'm confident. I think the quarterback situation is obviously going to be a work in progress. So there's going to be a lot of things that Arizona is going to have to figure out this season, but I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun for sure. I mean, to see this play out. But I think this year is more than the games actually taking place on the field. I think it's about, setting that culture, that mindset inside the locker room and getting the players to really believe in Jed Fish and in this system and in this program. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about building the program back up. In Jed Fish, when he took the job, he knows that's not going to happen overnight, and they all do. And Jed Fish said that they don't want to have. He didn't want to bring in coaches that are going to leave every year, go here, and someone else will leave and go somewhere else. They want to build a full group that's going to lead this team for the next few years, hopefully, and hopefully they can win. I mean, in about 2 years, I mean, they could start winning. I mean, but yeah, that to me, that's really what it's about. It's about setting that culture.
This does feel like kind of the start of something better here for this Arizona program. I mean, you mentioned it, they didn't want to bring in guys that, are just going to be, the coaching staff's just going to be here for a year or two. I mean, like Brandon Carroll, like he didn't have to be here. Like he could have easily, gotten, the next job, the next best job with the Seahawks. He was probably next in line to have, a big coaching job there. So like he didn't have to come to Tucson. Like these guys don't have to be here. Don Brown is one of the best defensive coordinators on the market. He didn't have to come to Tucson. Like he probably got offers from other places. So like these guys want to be here and want to be a part of something special. So, and that's what it's all about. It's more than just wins and losses with this squad. So I think they're going to be up for the challenge. I'm excited to see it. But I think we're running out of time here. So I think that's where we're going to have to end today's show. But I want to thank you, everybody, for coming in and tuning in and watching our show. As always, reminder that we are live here every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can check us out over on our website where we post all of our live shows and highlights to our website over at dashsports.tv. You can also follow us on social media where we post all of our clips and notify you when we go live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and hopefully we will see you next week.